Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's 9 o'clock on Wednesday night, which means it is time to go
behind the Bima.
Behind the Bima. My name is Rabbi Efrem Goldberg, joined by my dear friends and colleagues, Rabbi Philip Moskowitz and Rabbi Josh Broide. Gentlemen, here we are, Season 1, Episode 21, back together again, continuing to learn this great new program that we're using in order to be able to stream. And we welcome all of our viewers tonight, watching across the many platforms we are on. Guys, when you have to turn your sound off because it's feedback right back in it. And the podcast listeners who are listening on podcasts, thank you for listening. Please remember to rate and to review as well. So welcome back. Boys, what's happening in your hoods?
What's going on? Big speaker today to the rabbis of South Florida. Thank you, Rabbi Broide, for organizing, Rabbi Schachter.
It was really a great moment. But before we go on, are we streaming on Facebook? I don't see it, just for the record.
Yeah, I'm seeing us.
You do? Okay. So it was great. It was really great. One of the things that Rabbi Schachter started by saying was that he teaches rabbis all over the country. I mean, he's your Rebbe, right? And he says he can count on one hand the number of times he's taught a group like ours and still have 5 fingers left. I think that's basically what he said. He used it a little more technical.
One hand with fingers left over, something like that.
Right, which is really great. I got off that phone call and I've never felt so great. I just felt like we really did something special, a chance
it was beautiful.
To study together.
Listen, nothing makes you come alive like learning Torah and doing so with a great teacher like Rabbi Schachter and doing so with the rabbis of the community and using it to bind us and to build bridges together across the spectrum of the community. It was a really special, beautiful hour together. We have a lot in common, so that was really nice.
It was really
and we're
great.
grateful to the Jewish Federation of South Palm Beach County for sponsoring it. Thank you, Matt Levin, if you're watching, Marla Eggers, Rabbi Josh Broide. Thank you all. We appreciate it. To you, we say l'chaim. A big thank you.
It was so great.
L'chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nihiyeh b'dvaro.
But you also, you also felt that there's definitely a tension, right? The rabbis are feeling right now going into the holidays about how to deliver a message that speaks and resonates with families, singles, the elderly, right? The seniors. Things are great, right? We've always talked about how things have been almost life-changing, right? But at the same time, how it's not so positive for everyone. And how do you kind of bring out that positive message?
Although it's fascinating, when I was listening to it, I was thinking that Reform and conservative colleagues have a very different high holiday experience than we do. We're not getting into halacha and the areas of disagreement. And of course, we believe Torah is immutable, halacha is immutable, non-negotiable. There's no comment on that. But for Reform and conservative who haven't seen or in some ways haven't spoke to many of their members, they're really counting the holidays where they're streaming to be able to give elaborate, long drashas that communicate where they are, where they're going. For us, it's the opposite. We are having abridged services and where we're going to try to the best of our ability. I'm not sure we have that ability, but we're going to try to the best of our ability to cut down as much as we can our drashas to make them succinct, abridged, and to be able to stay within the parameters of our services. So there's really a fundamental difference between us. One of you have your Facebook playing in the background, so the sound is coming out.
It's weird. Can I just tell you, I don't even have this on Facebook. I don't know if you're seeing it. I'm looking at your page. Am I supposed to be on your page?
Yeah, I'm seeing it. But anyway, back to the podcast. Our podcast listeners are not watching, so they don't want to hear about this. But I want to go back to something we left off with last week. Last week, we talked about the unwritten rules of baseball. That was 2 weeks ago. not revisiting that disagreement that I was correct about at all. Not revisiting it. But we started a discussion about what are the unwritten rules of shul. What are some of the unwritten rules of shul? So in this week, you've had to think about it. Have you thought of any other unwritten rules of shul? Things that are not in the constitution or bylaws of a shul, things that aren't in Shulchan Aruch. And yet, if you do it, you're going to get a 98-mile-an-hour fastball to your arm.
Yeah, we could talk about that also, that the Yankees threw at someone's head this week for no apparent reason. And that's basically assault with a license to kill. But you seem to have been okay with it, so we'll move on.
But we're not going to because we're not talking sports. We got feedback. We have officially been on notice. We can't talk about cooking and we can't talk about sports. Every week that Behind the Bima goes on, our family narrows down further and further what we're allowed to talk about. So let's not talk about sports or the most winning dynasty of all of sports history. Let's talk about some of the unwritten rules of shul life. So we've got some viewers. By the way, if you're listening on the podcast, send us an email after the fact. But if you're watching live, please feel free in the YouTube chat or on Facebook chat, send us your thoughts. I'll share with you some of the ones our our listeners wrote on Twitter, some of the great ones. One of them jumped out at me last week after we talked about it, and this one is very clear. Shavuos morning, at the sunrise Nate's Minyan, the Vasikin Minyan, on Shavuos morning, you cannot sing any part of davening. If you're leading any part of davening, I don't care if you chapped a shluf, you took a drimmel, you got some sleep so you can make the brachos for everybody else. If you sing Halal Kedusha, one line of davening, by the way, South Florida is different than New York. New York, it's a joke. You finish dinner at 1 a.m. and you start the sunrise minyan at 2:30 a.m., and that's called staying up all night. In South Florida, close to the equator, we start learning at midnight. What time does Schachter start? Like 6 a.m.? That is the whole night. That is no sleep. So you sing on Shavuos morning, you might take it to the head.
I sit down next to you for the Haftorah, and I'm out. That's when I just...
You're out every single Shavuos morning. I look out from the Bima, and I start to count and calculate, do we still have a minyan of people listening at this moment? There are totally unconscious people all around the shul. What are some of the other unwritten rules, gentlemen?
What about Simchas Torah when you're ready to go on to the next hakafa because you're on like a clock, and there's always that one guy that wants to be the hot shot and to like continue the song even after everyone's like, let's move on a little bit? Or when you're ready to put it back in the aron and there's that like one guy back from yeshiva that that insists on keeping it going when everyone else is getting hungry.
Absolutely.
Sneezing in shul now is an unwritten rule. You cannot sneeze in shul now. You got to walk out. That's for sure an unwritten rule.
What's the rules?
What about the rule someone just put up there about a drasha? Do you guys take that into consideration? Are you looking at the clock when you're giving a drasha and say, you know what? Oof, I might be hitting the 20-minute mark. Is that dangerous?
No. The shul is like a casino. There is no clock. There's no.
There's a big clock in the back, and trust me, you see everyone's turning around.
Time stops moving when we speak. No,
there's definitely a clock there.
There's a big one. It's not only the seconds, but it's got like the microseconds.
No, but I'll tell you again. I said this last week. We're surprised to know. Much more aware of things than people assume we are. You're aware of the clock. You're aware of who's sleeping. You know, and Rabbi Goldberg, I know you know this. If you're telling a story that's killing it, you know it, right? When you have the room and you're in the middle of a story and you have everyone on the edge of their seats, you as the speaker, 100%, it's like putty in your hands. You know you have them.
You feel it. Yeah, it's true. Here's some more of the unwritten rules of shul life. This one. The rabbi cannot speak on Shabbos HaGadol or Shabbos Shiva before Musaf. When everyone's coming back later for the big Shabbos HaGadol, Shabbos Shiva Drasha, there's an unwritten rule of shul life. You cannot get up and give a drasha. Rabbi Haskell Lookstein famously says that there's no drasha like no drasha. There's no drasha like no drasha. So those are two mornings that you absolutely cannot give a drasha. What are the other ones?
I remember there was a time where, for those people that are listening that are not from Boca Raton Synagogue, you might not realize, but the rabbis speak at multiple minyanim on any given Shabbos. So if, for whatever reason, Rabbi Goldberg, let's say, is at a different minyan and now it's his slot to speak, there's this panic that ensues on the Bima. It's, where is he and how do we get him in here? And if you remember, there was one time.
Once in 10 years.
We looked. There was some miscommunication, let's say. We're not going to say who's to blame, but you didn't make it. And then there was...
I always make it.
No, there was one time.
One Pesach.
I got in trouble. I remember. I was drunk.
And it took me like a month to live that one down.
I always make it. Back to shul rules. So one is the ka'ela. You know when the Baal Koreh stops short, so the whole community yells the ka'ela, and then they do the ka'ela? That's like flexing. That's just, it's not cool. It's not cool.
How about singing for Birchas Kohanim on Shavuos morning? There,
yeah, singing Birchas Kohanim Shavuos morning. That's like doing a slow akdamas. It's just out of bounds. Out of bounds. You get a fast esrog pelted to the body. What about one of our Twitter followers says you can't start Haftorah till 75% of Galila is done. You cannot get offsides. Premature Galila. You can't start the Haftorah till at least 75 of the Galila is done.
What about Hagba?
What about Hagba?
How big do you go? Some people try to do the 10 columns, and it's right. Like you can see it's not working.
That's an unwritten rule.
Don't go too big. 3 is enough.
Unwritten rule. Don't do more columns than you can handle. Right. Nobody wants to give up eating for the week. 100%. 100%. By the way, also another one of our writers.
If palm is sweaty, forego the handshake.
Oh, that's a big one.
Unwritten rule of shul life. I like that. If you have sweaty hands, just nod.
First of all, how happy are you? We're not going to say who might be more germ phobic than the other one here, but the rabbis walk around and
I'll
shake
admit it.
hands.
I'm a total germ phobe, and I do not miss shaking hands at all. I miss obviously the chevra and being able to whatever, but the shaking sweaty hands on Shabbos morning, I'm fine if it never comes back.
And we know who has sweaty hands. Let's just, for the record.
Oh, for sure. You brace yourself.
Guys, hey, let's be gentle. Let's be nice. Not everybody can control it.
But I'm saying, is it over? Is handshaking over now? Forever?
It's a big question whether it's ever coming back. I won't miss handshaking, but I will miss contact. Meaning, when you connect with somebody in a moment of grief and a moment of joy, there's a real something to giving a hug, to putting an arm around a shoulder, to feeling connected. The handshake, hand to hand, I don't think I'll miss. I hope I don't need it to come back personally, but the ability to have that contact and that shared energy is something I think that we're missing right now. I don't know. We'll see. A couple more. What are a couple more unwritten rules of shul life? You can't spread your siddur, your talis, and your chumash across multiple chairs and give yourself an entire business section seating. I'll tell you another unwritten rule. You can't start adjusting the chairs to give yourself extra leg room. You didn't pay for the extra leg room. You don't get the extra leg room. In
chairs. The row.
We know people who come to shul like 20 minutes early. They think before anyone else, and they're doing construction. If you don't have permanent pews, all of a sudden they're moving entire rows of chairs.
7 rows.
7 rows. That is against the rules. Against the rules. What about singing Hallel on Rosh Chodesh during the week? Is that an unwritten rule of shul life?
No, I love it. I actually think that should be gone away with. Why not sing a song? 2 extra minutes to enjoy Hallel. There's actually our fact checker recently sang a song during Hallel, and I appreciated it. I thought it was wonderful. I'm not outing anybody. No one knows who he is, but it was really nice, and I appreciated it. I think it's a great thing.
I think that most people just don't like to be surprised. If I'm coming to a minyan where I expect it to be like this, and all of a sudden someone throws in something like it's a weekday Hallel, and then all of a sudden it just goes, this guy's doing a whole concert. Like I didn't sign up for that.
No, but there's a whole concert and one song to show that we're not just flying through this. We're not on the fast track, but it's Rosh Chodesh. We're going to enjoy this a little bit.
Right. Unwritten rule is when you don't keep the pace of that weekday minyan. The fact that you're an Avel doesn't make you a Chazan. That's an unwritten rule of shul life. And that's a sensitive subject, and I'm not saying that there shouldn't be a right to the Amud. I'm just saying it depends for which tefillah, Shabbos, Yantif, weekday, Musaf versus the old Shabbos Mincha. There's a reason we have Psukei de Zimra and Shabbos Mincha. That is for people who have Yurtzeit that week who are not Chazanim.
So I could put it back on that. I don't know if you want to go there right now. I saw you hesitate on that one.
Go ahead.
No, I'll say it's complicated. It's complicated. As someone who had to spend a year davening for the Amud and hated every single second of it, there's enormous pressure, and I think this is a societal error that we make. We put a lot of pressure on like leading the Amud, right? If you're an Avel, you lead the Amud. If you're an Avel, you say Kaddish, right? That's one part of a toolbox that God gave us. But because we place such an emphasis on it, people think that they're like failing if they don't daven for the Amud. And then we come along and say, by the way, you're not really such a great chazan. We don't want you to daven for the Amud. And we basically robbed them in their mind of their ability to connect with a loved one who deceased. So it's complicated emotionally. That's all I'm pointing out.
I think that along those lines,
I want to push back. Rabbi Broide, hold on one second. Okay. I want to push back with sensitivity because I understand that to the right and left of me, the 2 rabbis who are my dearest and closest friends have gone through life trauma, and my heart goes out, and you've each lost a father, and I can't even begin to imagine what that means at a young age. And really, I hope you do know that my heart goes out, and I try to be sensitive. But on this subject, I really do feel, with respect and sensitivity, that there are some in Hagei Avelis, there are customs of being a mourner, which include being entitled to daven on the Shabbos before the Yurtzeit, or there are customs of getting an Aliyah. But as is said, your father made you, not you, a person's father made them an Avel, it didn't make them a Chazan. And therefore, my father lost his father at a relatively young age. He knows he's not a Chazan, and therefore he never asked for the Amud other than Psukei de Zimra, maybe Shabbos Mincha. Those are the slots that are designated. Rabbi Moskowitz, you happen to daven beautifully. I can listen to you for Shachar, as most of you should be doing the Elon Yom Kippur. You daven beautifully, so this is literally not personal. Literally, there it is for
sure. But I want you to know,
it's literally not personal for you.
I don't enjoy davening. My brother's a chazan; he davens beautifully. I'm the speaker in the family. I don't enjoy davening for the Amud, and I found it a burden as opposed to something that gave meaning and context to what I was going through. I agree with you, right? Now, you and I have had this conversation in the past. I agree. Just because a person's an avel doesn't make them a chazan. All I'm pointing out is that we, as religious leaders, need to then de-emphasize davening for the amud. When someone loses a parent or a sibling,
right?
We need to say to them, there are many ways you can contribute to the aliyah of the neshama for the elevation of the soul of your loved one. One of them could be davening for the amud.
Right.
You can give charity. You can do good deeds. You can teach Torah, learn Torah. There are a myriad of ways God gave us to create nachas for someone who passed away.
I don't think we're disagreeing. And let's pick this up after we entertain our guest who is waiting to come in. We're very excited to have him join momentarily. Let's pick this up because it's an important discussion, because the truth is we're not disagreeing. What we're both saying is that if you don't have that God-given gift, and you haven't been able to cultivate within you. And there are Avelim, by the way, who struggle with Nusach, with Hebrew. They're not as fluent. They're not as familiar. They feel pressure to daven for the Yomid every day. They see a little slower. They can't keep up with the assumed pace of the minyan. I couldn't agree with you more. That shouldn't be the only way to express that morning. Let's come back to that conversation. But right now we want to very excited to welcome our guest for this evening, Nachi Gordon. Nachi, let's make sure you're not muted. There you are, Nachi. Thank you so much for being with us. What's going on, Nachi?
Good to be here on this big time show. Really,
it's good to have you. Nachi, let me introduce you to my dear colleagues and friends, Rabbi Moskowitz and Rabbi Josh Broide. Nachi, you are a really impressive young man. I've been watching you for a little time now, and came to get to know you a few months ago. We connected over some of the projects you're working on, and then feel very privileged to have been interviewed for Meaningful People, which is coming out sometime soon. We could talk about that. Coming out this Motzei Shabbos. All right, we'll have to tell everyone where to look. But Nachi, we've been watching it. It's really. Can I put you on the spot to begin with? How old are you?
I am 25. 18.
Aside from the fact that you look like I should be babysitting for you right now, 25 years old. So at 25 years
is it past his bedtime right now?
It might be past Nachi's bedtime, but we're keeping him up late. He got special permission. So for those who don't know, Nachi worked as an NBA licensed agent and worked in the area of sports agency. Definitely want to talk to you about that. That is very cool, and get your opinion on swinging on a 3-0 pitch. Nachi worked in that arena, worked for a law firm, started a yeshiva league in the community of the Five Towns where he grew up and where the Gordons are synonymous with the Five Towns. His dad, Larry Gordon, is the founder, editor of the Five Towns Jewish Times. And then you morphed. You've discovered this role, this Meaningful Minute, which today, how many Meaningful Minutes sends out to how many subscribers a day?
Baruch Hashem, we've got 30,000 on WhatsApp, another 28,000 followers on Instagram, around 15,000 emails, and we get 10,000 people who downloaded our new app, thank God. So there's a lot of different platforms. We're getting it out there.
You want to come work from behind the Bima?
All right, we got to move over though.
we're gonna steal him over. But Nachi, let's start out by telling our listeners, we want to go behind the Bima with you. How in the world did you get into this? How'd you go from NBA sports agent to promoting and teaching and sharing Torah in such a broad and efficient way that is stretching such far distances? What's the story?
So I was around, 17, 18 years old. That's the only job I wanted to be, was a sports agent, to be honest. I think I watched some documentary, and I didn't want to be that guy that goes to shul on Shabbos who talks about, the Knicks and the Rangers and doesn't have skin in the game. I wanted to, be benefiting off these guys. So I emailed thousands of different agencies and law firms, and I got a few, internships. Make a long story short, I guess by the time I was 2021, I certified with the MBA PA, which you need basically to have a bachelor's degree, and you have to take a test. And I got a pretty solid job with a nice firm that represents some NBA players, and I signed the player, and he actually got signed by an NBA team, and it was going well. I think I was the youngest NBA agent to represent a player in the NBA. A lot of the work that we were doing in the field that I was doing specifically was overseas. We'd send a guy to Spain, to Israel, different countries where they pay pretty well for these guys to play. There's only a limited amount of jobs in the big leagues here.
Is that player's name Yehosh Shafat by any chance?
He's definitely one of them who made a career outside of the NBA. But how it morphed, it's a very difficult field to be in as a from Jew. Not that I'm discouraging it. Anyone who's passionate about it, it's possible. My email, I had auto reply on Shabbos. So if, let's say, a G League team or an NBA team for workouts were emailing me, one of my jobs is to coordinate the NBA workouts. So one of my clients, his name was Rashawn, coming out of college, he had 15 teams that wanted to work him out between the Spurs, the Thunder, the Knicks. So had to coordinate with the team, the flights, when he's going to get there. The Pacers want him from OKC, so I had to coordinate everything. And sometimes those emails came in on a Friday night, so we would schedule in a way where I'd get I'd call it Shabbos mode, where I'd send out another email, which would, I guess, ping someone else, one of my colleagues, who would take it from there. And time went on. I was still single at the time, and it's a very exciting business, and you could make a lot of money, but it's cutthroat. It's very difficult. You have to hang out in the underbellies of Madison Square Garden late at night sometimes, and it wasn't I don't think viable. But that's not why I left. I started doing I started watching more classes online, Torah classes, and I would come across a line in a speech where I'm like, wow, that was really good. Like he said that really well. I want my friend to hear this, or I want my brother to hear this, but he's not going to watch the whole entire thing. So I can send him the timestamp. Go to this minute, and listen to that part. But what are the chances he'll do that? So I decided to just cut him out. So the first thing I did was I cut out like a 3.5 minute clip, and I sent it around. And I saw that this 3.5 minute clip that I made, that I sent to like a couple of my friends, ended up on like a bunch of different pages, and it went sort of Jewish WhatsApp viral. And I'm like, it's pretty cool. Maybe let me start doing more of this. And really, it was a hobby. I started cutting clips. The reason why I did a minute was because at the time, Instagram's limit was 1 minute videos. So I decided to do a minute. And the name came from somebody. I was doing an Instagram live one night, and they said, we're throwing out different names. What should we name this? Someone said Meaningful Minute. So we ran with that, and it's been around a little over 3 years. We started from zero. We started with WhatsApp groups and one little Instagram page, and it's grown pretty rapidly.
It's really amazing what you've accomplished. And not only have you accomplished it for a meaningful minute, but as one of the commenters here writes, the truth is you paved the way. You created a new genre, a new venue, a new way to disseminate Torah to the masses in a way that is consumed and inspires and transforms people's lives. And the people who ride your coattails from the Torah Anytime Daily Dose and Kol Torah Kula. And I can just tell you as a rabbi that I'm contacted regularly, could you record a short video? And there's no end now to the groups that have, every group of young guys. And I admire them and I applaud them and I try to support them and send them something. But every new group of young people has come up with their new group. Every rabbi's had their WhatsApp group. I have several WhatsApp groups, and I know what it means to try to send out over several WhatsApp groups. How do you get to 30,000 people? Give us some of the mechanics. Take us into behind the Bima on how you send out a minute to 30,000 people on WhatsApp.
So
take notes, by the way.
So you know what? I get this question a lot from people who are wanting to do the same thing. I think it's amazing that people are continuing to start these up, and it's you see more and more every day, which it's great. I think some Rabbi might hate me because they can't speak for 45 minutes anymore because people's attention spans are a little bit shorter. But mechanically, there's no easy way. WhatsApp we don't own WhatsApp. I don't own WhatsApp, so WhatsApp was made so you can talk to your grandmother in Europe. It wasn't made so you could send a message to 30,000 people. You can rely on the Jews to go ahead and take that platform and turn it into that, and to have 15,000 people viewing your WhatsApp status. But it's broadcastless, and we have hundreds of them, and it's manual work, and it'll take on any given day 4 hours to send a minute out to every single one of our subscribers.
Wow.
We have the 2 phones at this point because one of the decisions I made from the beginning was, and I think this is a big part of the success. Of course, everything's from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and I think this part was, if anyone would ask, what do you think did it? I think it was made a decision in the beginning that we're doing 7 days a week. We're not missing Motzei Shabbos, this, that. We're doing it every single day.
Wow.
And we're in people's lives. We're consistent. And sometimes Shabbos would end at 9 o'clock, 9:15, and it'd take 5 hours to send it out. So there are times where I'd be sending out videos and it's 1, 2 a.m. If I'm single, it's, okay, no problem. When you go get married, it's probably not so gushman. And decided to split it into 2 phones. So you could basically be sending simultaneously to the same amount of people. It takes a little less time. But it's a lot of manual work. Hopefully WhatsApp one day has that option where they say, you know what, you can send a message out to 50,000 people at once.
Wow.
But it's not how it is. It's one of the reasons we invested very, very heavily in our new app, because we felt like, we don't own WhatsApp, and we want to be able to have a platform that we can control. And that's what we went ahead and built. Where
can people download that app? It's a great app.
You can download that app in the App Store. If you have an iPhone, you go to the App Store, Meaningful Minute, Google Play Store. Go to the Google Play Store and download it. Thank God we launched around a few months ago. I remember talking to you, I think, right in the beginning. And we just crossed over the 10,000 mark. We have 10,000 people who have downloaded the app. It's very revolutionary. People might think it's just an app where we post the minute, but it's really so much more than that. We went ahead and created a social media for rabbis and speakers where you can be posting as if you're posting on Instagram or Twitter, and the users can see a different side, I guess, behind the Bima, really, of these rabbis, and we give them a platform that maybe isn't like any other.
I think what it does also is, my kids, for example, are not on social media, but they get a taste of it. They basically are filtering out only the best of, or the most pure, or the most inspiring, or the most Torah-dic by creating that alternative to it within a designated app, which is really cool also.
Right. That was the goal. I grew up very much, social media world, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and I constantly, every day, we sit down, me and my staff, and we try to figure out what are ways we can adapt. Even like you look at TikTok, which is, really terrible, but we try to see like, okay, what are they doing on a technical level that has people so in love with it?
Are we going to see Charlie Harari dancing next week? Is that what you're telling us?
Yeah, I guess maybe.
Dancing.
Nachi, when did you know this was the real deal, right? You said you started as a small little project. It's obviously enormous. It's huge. It's making such an impact in people's lives. When did that kind of click in your head that said, wait a second, I'm onto something? This isn't just another cute project, but I'm going to have to take this to the next level. You referenced the staff, the hours that go into it. Walk us through kind of like how that change happened in you. And then I'm curious, what's been your favorite minute out of all the minutes that you put out there? Which is your favorite minute?
Yeah.
And you don't have to say Efrem Goldberg just because he's here.
But I'll tell you, it's really 2 answers to the first part of your question. I think one of the first nights after I started Meaningful Minute was just basically a couple of WhatsApp groups. And you know how a link can go out and people join the groups. I went to sleep. I started the groups probably 3 nights prior, and I woke up at 5 a.m. My phone was buzzing. And this was on my personal phone. At this point, we have totally separate numbers, and we try to keep it very separate. But this was on my personal phone at the time. I thought, like, what's the big deal? My phone was buzzing. And I look, and I see, okay, the group filled up. Pretty cool. One group filled up, 206 people. Then I saw, like, a message from a +44 area code, which is, the UK. And it was a message from a guy who's still subscribed to this day. And we laugh about it sometimes. He messaged me saying, hey, Nachi, I know you're probably sleeping, but your group filled up. So I started a second one for you. Here's the admin controls. That one filled up. So I started a third one for you. Here's the admin controls. And I went to sleep, that night with, 200 people on it. And then there's like 600. A lot of Europe, overseas. We get subscribers from countries I really can't even pronounce. So it really evolved, but in a more deeper level. One summer, I attended Camp Monk for like 15 summers of my life, and I got a relationship with Shirley Besser from Mishpacha, and he's an author. He's incredible, and I met him during the summer where we first got to know each other, and he said, "Yo, you're the WhatsApp guy?" Like, okay, what WhatsApp guy? Yeah, I sent out the videos, and he said, "You're gonna love this article in Mishpacha this week." So what are you talking about? He said, they interviewed a father. His name was Efrem Klein, and his daughter passed away. There's a story about her. She was rejected from the schools, and she passed away. And he says, and it's in the article. And I was reading this, and this is when it really clicked, like in an inner level for me. He said that he was sitting there by Shiva, and there was a lot of noise. A lot of people were saying a lot of different things, and he wasn't sure what the message he was supposed to take out of everything. And he said his message came in the form of a daily WhatsApp video that he gets every single day for Meaningful Minute. And there's a video of Rabbi Manas Friedman saying that as a parent, when you do your best, success isn't measured on the results. Success is measured on, what you do, what your actions are. And that gave him the chizuk, he gave him the kayach during the shiva for his daughter to really speak out and to get up there and go around and start an organization and talk about how important it is to, how we treat, kids in schools and bullying and stuff like that. So when I read that, and when I spoke to him and I met him by some of our events, that really clicked for me, like this is real. And anything else that I'm doing that's taking my attention, a lot of my attention, I think I really need to put on the back burner and sort of invest more hours into growing this.
Well, that article must have really confirmed you made the right decision, not hanging out in the underbelly Madison Square Garden, but really changing lives. And it is, Meaningful Minute is, first of all, I've been interviewed on pod. I have nothing to gain by this. So I've already been interviewed. I've already gotten a Meaningful Minute. So I'm just speaking from the heart. It's a movement, because I know you run events and you're doing things that are really impacting lives. People wait for that minute to come in and they're inspired by it, which is really amazing. Rabbi Broide, what was your question?
And first of all, Nachi, you got to get Rabbi Goldberg's Meaningful Minute from today. This was, it wasn't your Meaningful Minute, but you sent out today a great thing about the tightrope. So I'll tell you something. Yeah, that was great. That was a great message. It was quick also. Normally, it could be 4 minutes. This was a shorter one. But the point is, I want you to know, and again, I don't know if you do this or if it's encouraged on the app or if you do it, if this is a message, but I would certainly recommend it. And I'm going to give you an example, something I heard just yesterday from someone that was listening to one of these WhatsApp messages, and he heard it. And the first thing he did was he says, you know what? There's this family that I know, and I know that the father would love this message. He's not religious, he doesn't practice, but there's something about what I just heard that I think would really resonate with this family. So he sends it over to the guy. The guy writes back. The guy thinks, after listening to this message, that he's talking now to his wife and kids, but he's talking to the guy that sent him the message. And he says, I just got this from a friend. He's not even a rabbi. He says, I just got this from an associate. He's he's a very Jewish guy. He sends me this message. I really think you're going to really be inspired by his message. Now, he sent it to the guy, not to the family. But sometimes you just get to see the result when you pass on, and it takes 2 seconds. Just forward this friend, that friend, throw that to another group. You never know who's listening. Sometimes you end up by accident, sometimes seeing the results. But these things are so easy to pass on everywhere. I'm talking to the audience that's listening and watching now. When you see something that's meaningful to you, send it to more people. Don't just keep it to yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's really, I think how it grew so quick is we send it out to, I guess a certain amount of people on WhatsApp. Let's say it's 28,000 people that get it from us directly every day on WhatsApp. But I'm able to see some days with some of the content when, we're scrolling, through these thousands of WhatsApp statuses and you see it's posted by like hundreds of people. You have to start thinking like this video is probably seen by well over 50,000 people just by the impressions. So yeah, it's incredible. Just the ability to pass around this stuff and how far it can go.
Clearly from that sound, by the way, your phone's blowing up again because everybody knows you're on behind the Bima, and they can't believe how far it's gone.
I was hoping you didn't hear that, but oh well.
No, so I'll tell you. That's all right. So I'll tell you what's interesting is I asked you recently how you choose the minute, how you choose who goes out, and I was shocked to hear. We're going a little behind the Bima. I hope we're not giving trade secret. I was shocked to hear how many rabbis forward you their own minute and essentially ask you to choose that one. Now, again, there are a lot of rabbis out there. They make a career by public speaking. They want to be scholars and residents. They want to get flown around. They're trying a lot of very, I'm sure, lishma, very noble. They want to just get that teaching out there. They want to get that message. They want to be ambassadors of Hashem. But it was pretty shocking to me that rabbis are sending you directly their own minute as opposed to you're having a team that is scouring the internet looking for that minute. But I think it's interesting as 3 rabbis who speak regularly talking to you, I wonder how Meaningful Minute shaped the way some of these rabbis are speaking, whether they're crafting their 45-minute shiur, trying to find that 1 minute when they're on fire. They're like, I'm going to find a minute, and I'm going to go on fire for that minute so that I can send that to Nachi Gordon. I want to break through. 44 minutes, but I'm going to find my minute. They'll put a little music behind it. They'll have a little thing scrolling underneath it, and then I'll break through. That'll be my minute.
Yeah, I hope I didn't have too much of an effect, but they're definitely, and I was hoping this would happen. In the beginning, it was really just me going through YouTube and Torah Anytime and Hidabrut and whatever it may be, looking for content to cut, and it's hit or miss. You can go through an hour of speech and it still won't be
There's nothing there.
1 minute. But sometimes I sit there, I'm like, wow, I just went through a 45-minute speech. But you know what? I learned something, I guess. But I was hoping that one day it would be big enough that rabbis would start sending us stuff directly, and you'd be surprised. There's Baruch Hashem, a lot of them that shoot content that's 60 seconds, which is very difficult. So I give a lot of props to them. Just shoot a 60-second message and send it to us. There are rabbis who will send me a link and say 42 minutes and 36 seconds. I got you. That's where I hit the stride for a 60 seconds just for you. So that happens, and I think in terms of the impact, I don't think it changes necessarily the way rabbis speak. I think the way rabbis speak when they're in front of a crowd should remain the same. It's enjoyable for the people who are there. They're connecting. But I feel very strongly that in 2020, in the day and age that we are in, that a speech that's filmed in Chicago where a rabbi is talking to a crowd of 100 people may not appeal to one person who's trying to get his chizuk because he's not there. The speech is meant primarily for the people who are sitting there. So I'm a big believer in again, podcasting. I think content like this where it's more intimate and personable. A lot of rabbis are shooting messages where they're looking straight at the camera. They're talking to an audience who are out there. I think that stuff is the future of the way Torah is going to be shared. I think.
Interesting. Any rabbis trying to schmear you to use their minute? Anybody send a little cash under the table with their minute?
No comment. I'm smart enough.
Any pushback? Anyone give you a hard time for Meaningful Minute? Was it a criticism at first? Anytime you're doing something good, it'll always wake up voices of opposition. You get the haters, you get the trolls. So yeah. What could someone even hate about Meaningful Minute?
So you know what? I 99.9% is all positive. Really, there hasn't been a lot of negative. In the very beginning, I used a video of a guy named Les Brown, who's not Jewish. I wouldn't call him a preacher, but he is something of those sorts. And I got a call from my Pesach Crone. He said, and I was like shaking my boots. I was like, whoa, I wasn't speaking to Rabbi Pesach Crone. He said, I love what you're doing, but keep it in the frum world. Keep it for rabbis. I'm like, okay. And I think that was great guidance by him. So that was very positive and set me on the right path. Other than that, sometimes when we use, let's say, a female speaker, we'll get not as much as we used to, but we'll get some pushback from different communities. There are so many different type of people out there. It's impossible to please everybody. Some people want more of this rabbi, some people want more of that rabbi, and but honestly, most of it is A1. Of course,
that's amazing.
There are crazies with everything. But we just laugh at it.
That's great. That's great. We want to thank Nachi Gordon for being with us, the founder and the director of Meaningful Minute. Thanks for spending some time with us tonight. We really appreciate you going behind the Bima. Spend 1 minute on your way out. Tell us about what is Meaningful People? How'd that podcast get started? What are you up to? And tell us, what does it mean that somebody's wired? What does it mean that you're most wired guest?
Oh, so I guess you heard that. We mentioned it again in the intro. So Meaningful People podcast started by myself and Yaakov Langer, co-host. And, like I mentioned, the hopes was to create content that people can listen to and really, engage with and get to know meaningful people. people who are making an impact in Klal Yisrael in their own way, and derive, chizuk from their lives, and, really squeeze the good stuff out of them. So we started quite a while ago filming, starting recording maybe last November. And it's great content. That's really all I can say about it. It also is on the Meaningful Minute app. We have the podcast uploaded there. I would say if anyone hasn't heard of it or didn't listen to one yet, just listen to one. This Motzei Shabbos, you can listen to that one, Rabbi Efrem Goldberg. But just listen to one and you'll get hooked. We thank God have over 140,000 audio downloads, and we have over 85,000 YouTube views collectively on our episodes, and very different guests. We're 20 episodes in, I think. And it's really good content. You're in the car, you're preparing for Shabbos, you have an hour. I think, you can learn a lot from it. And I don't remember the last part of your question.
Wired. What does it mean to be wired?
I don't know. It's super like laser focused on a mission, on a goal. It's like you have your coffee in the morning and like you don't even blink the rest of the day. You know exactly what's going on. You don't have to even, you're wired. You're mission driven, I guess.
I like that. I like that.
In the
Nachi
zone.
Gordon, thank you so much for being with us tonight. We had so many more questions. We'll have to have you back, talk about the 5 towns Jewish Times a little bit, and talk about so much more, the Yeshiva Sports League that's going on. You still running that league?
Well, COVID is through a little bit of a
COVID, yeah.
Because we usually run hockey indoors, and I don't know what's going to be with that, but we do run Jewish sports leagues in the 5 towns, and Mirza Hashem will get up and running soon.
Sounds good. Nachi, thanks for being with us. Hashem should give you the strength and the wisdom, the vision to keep spreading those messages of Torah. And it's, promoting a little ADD and ADHD, but we'll let that pass and keep inspiring people's minutes. Let those minutes add up to hours and transform Klal Yisrael. Thank you so much. Aksiva Chsima Tova. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Wow.
It's really amazing. Young guy, he's 25 years old, and he's collectively reaching hundreds of thousands of Jews with inspiration. It's really transformative. It's beautiful. And it's almost like you did it by accident.
Right.
It happened by accident.
Let me ask you a question, though, as an educator.
Oh, boy.
You even referenced it at the end.
Boston.
You referenced contributing to the ADD, the ADHD. Someone prepares a 45-minute shiur, an hour class. You give your Shabbos Shuvah Drasha. You'll go an hour, 45 minutes, 2 hours sometimes. Don't give me that.
2 hours. I've never gone 2 hours in my life.
Rabbi Broide, has he ever gone 2 hours in his life?
No, I've never gone 2 hours. I challenge that. Where's our fact checker? Where is the fact checker?
If Matthew Hockman were here. Anyways, whatever the time is there a little piece of you that wonders that however amazing it is, and I don't mean to diminish it one bit, but that you're almost contributing to like a shortened version of Torah, right? That why would you listen to the hour shiur when I can listen to the 10-minute this, the 5-minute this, the 1-minute this, the 30-second this? It's like, how quickly can we get our message out so that people don't actually have to like invest themselves in a shiur, but they can go as quickly as they want?
I hear that concern, but my response to that concern, as somebody who tried to be on social media towards the beginning, sharing Torah in that way, I know both of you also share this idea, is you could speak to people where you wish they were, or you could find people where they are. And there's both, right? And there are people who come to learn with us in a base medrash. There are people who come to shiurim. There's learning of all kinds of levels. But there is a world of people who have an attention span of a minute, or will give you that minute while they're getting in the car, while they're brushing their teeth, while they're doing whatever they're doing. And that's the time you're going to get. And I think he's appealing to that audience. I don't think he's trying to grab people out of the base medrash, right? He's not telling you, close the Gemara, leave your chavrusa, leave the daf, and watch a meaningful minute. What he's saying is, in between your learning, chop another minute. Or if all you're going to get in is a minute, take that minute. And he's reaching people basher husham, and he's reaching them in very, very meaningful ways. In some ways, he's got the biggest pulpit in America. Much bigger than others. And it is power. I mean, I was alluding to it. Maybe I know too much, but first of all, it shocked me. It doesn't shock you that there are rabbis who send their own minute and they're like, please, please, please use this and send this?
Not surprised at all.
Does he play everyone's minute that's submitted, or does he reject some?
No. A fraction of them go in and he chooses. It's a powerful position. He's one of the most powerful Jewish men in America. 25 years old. Power broker. Online, meaningful minute. It's good stuff. Look, it's good stuff. And Elu, be streaming 2-hour-long Shabbos Shuvah Drashas apparently. Stream long, elaborate, beautiful, developed ideas. I will tell you this, and you know this. trying to say something in 60 seconds in 1
Very
minute
hard.
takes us a minute to say hello.
Very hard. Very hard.
Very, very hard.
Especially for rabbis.
Especially for rabbis. Look, if nothing else, I hope our audience, and I know I look and say, he was on one trajectory of his life and he discovered Hashem changed his path. He woke up one morning and this thing went berserk and viral. And he's like, you know what? That's not for a Ben Torah. This is, I'm out of there. And what a lesson for life for all of us. First of all, don't underestimate what we could do. Have a little vision, put in a little work, and you can make something big happen. And let Hashem pave the path for you.
It also shows just how hungry people are for it. If you put out good content, quality content, in a user-friendly way, people will gobble it up. There's a real thirst for spirituality out there. And if you can, as you said, if you can make it accessible to them, the people will show up.
This just in from our fact checker. It never came close to a 2-hour Shabbos Shuvah Drasha. Maybe you fell asleep. It felt like 2 hours. Maybe you needed the restroom and it felt like it was taking 2 hours. But never came close.
When our friend Matthew Hockerman listens to this tomorrow, then you and I are gonna get a text.
Listen, Matthew can man up. Matthew can man up and come on the podcast. And if he thinks we went 2 hours, he could come on and tell me himself. Let's change gears. We have a bunch of other things to talk about tonight. But we're grateful to Nachi for joining us. And one was brought to our attention, my attention, by a good friend of ours, Farley. Give him a shout out. One like the third or fourth best tennis player in the community. So Farley brought to our attention as the president of the National Council of Young Israel. Not everybody always agrees with their politics. Can be controversial, some of the positions they take. But I would hope this one's not. And that is a controversial move that Harvard University did this week, naming Dr. Saib Erekat, chief Palestinian negotiator, the head of the negotiating affairs for the PLO, as a fellow for the 2020-21 academic year. Well, he'll join the Future of Diplomacy project at Harvard's Kennedy School for Science and International Affairs. And why is that controversial? What struck me when I saw the story is what the whole safe space thing. Safe space, triggers, that only applies to racism, xenophobia, homophobia, every other form of hate. Doesn't apply to anti-Semitism. Saib Erekat is a pathological liar. He has distorted facts about Jews and about Israel. He has advanced interests. He said Hamas is not a terror organization. He has celebrated terrorists who have murdered Jews in cold blood. And he's given an appointment at a school of diplomacy.
Why are you surprised? Why are you surprised? Do you not know what's going on in college campuses and the way the Israel-Arab conflict is being perceived?
I do know that there's a very liberal stance and the whole occupation and all of that. But my point is the hypocrisy, and let's call it out, and kudos to those who have, that what happened to safe space? Is Harvard's Kennedy School now a safe space for a Jew or a Zionistic non-Jew who sees that they named as a fellow? By the way, they named him as a fellow.
Is UCLA a safe space? Is Michigan a safe space? My point is, I agree with you 100%. My point is, I think there's something much more fundamental broken in the university system around America, where you legitimately have students on many college campuses, whether it's in Michigan, whether it's in California. I don't want to, I know a lot of people from Boston, and a lot of them are afraid to share their political views in Boston. It's not popular if you're on the other side of how people feel. In shul, in offices, in college campuses, it is.
What does that mean in shul? Take us back to in shul. What does that mean?
Well, first of all, Boston has a lot of academics. You have a tremendous amount of people who have professorships, academics. Certainly, when I was growing up, it's a very college town. It's a college-driven town. Obviously, a very liberal town as well. And there is definitely there's a bent there. Even in where I grew up, Newton, Massachusetts. So Newton North, there was a big controversy a few years ago. Camera was very involved in the way they were projecting the Arab-Israeli conflict in their textbooks in a way that you and I couldn't even fathom. It would be so out of this worldly to us to be doing that. But that's the reality.
Yeah, I'm not playing the victim card. I'm just saying that words like trigger, safe space, cancel culture, they seem to apply to everybody but the Jew. And we've seen that now among athletes. We saw that among celebrities. We're still working on our website. By the way, the people watching who said they'd help with the website, let's get working on the website. We're still working on that celebrate or rate the celebrity or whatever we're going to call that website, about whether they're pro-Israel, anti-Israel, and support our friends and protest our enemies. But Harvard University, this bastion and beacon of intellectualism, what happened to triggers and safe space and cancel culture? First of all, I mean, you get your money back. If you're learning diplomacy from one of the greatest failures of diplomacy in all of history, right? He has no success, no triumph on his record. That is the teacher, the ambassador, the professor of diplomacy. But much more than a failure of diplomacy, What happened to safe space?
You remember a few years ago, Ahmadinejad, when he was the president of when he spoke at Columbia, right? This is university life. I mean, listen. You're saying, again, I don't want to get into college campuses, but the openness and the liberalism that is pervasive on college campuses is a double-edged sword, right? In other words, people are sending their kids there. They understand that there's a benefit to that, and they want their children to be worldly. But you're going to face these issues. And by the way, that puts the burden on us as community educators and on our high schools, because by the time our kids go to college, they're not equipped to deal with these types of things and to respond and to feel confident and comfortable speaking out. That, for our kids going to college campus, is probably the number one thing we can equip them with.
So, Rabbi Moskowitz, are you making a comment, season 1, episode 21? Are you saying it right here on Behind the Bima? Are you opposed to Orthodox kids going to secular college campus?
That is not what I said, but I appreciate you trying to drum up some controversy. I simply said that there are situations, there are risks involved, and as a parent making an educated decision, you have to understand those risks and educate your child properly for those risks. And don't be surprised when Seb Arakat is invited as a visiting professor. Right? You're buying into a mindset. You're buying into a system.
My daughter's applying right now for different colleges. First of all, I think the biggest problem right now is that everything you've mentioned is getting worse. So, it was bad 10 years ago, 5 years ago, it got a lot worse. Now it's crazier than it's ever been. And I speak to people on college campuses all over this country, and we always hear stories, very, very, very negative stories. But my daughter right now, she's looking at, thank God, she's doing really well in school, and she's looking at different colleges. And she says, well, what about this one? I said, okay, let's go on the internet. Let's just look at stories of what's happened there. You see a ton of stories. Well, what about this one? This one's in New York. There's a great New York school. Problems there. What about this one? What about that one? Everyone. Found one that was pretty good. Hopefully she'll end up in Israel, but
the other kids.
Yeah, but it's crazy. You can't.
So one of our commenters said there are risks all over. And I agree with that. There are risks all over. But as a parent, your job is to educate and prepare your child for those risks. It's to help them understand those risks. It's to give them the confidence and the tools to withstand those risks. And if what you're saying is correct, in that there are legitimate risks when it comes to being a Jew on college campus and the anti-Israel bias, then we need to do as good of a job as we can to prepare the kids for that experience.
Well, I think you could summarize it like this, and I agree with you, and kudos to you for not jumping into that controversy. It is complicated, it's nuanced, but I would say this. What you're pointing out is that secular college campuses today are increasingly hostile environments to Torah-observant Zionist Jews. And they're hostile environments. They're hostile environments in the classroom, professors. They're hostile environments on those walkway, causeway, whatever they call those things, where they're... Breezeway, something way. I knew it was a way. Driveway, highway, breezeway, causeway. You ever wonder that they always ask why you park in a driveway and drive in a parkway? What do you do in the causeway? Oh, you advocate for your cause. Okay, there you go. So anyway, but breezeway. Secular college campus. Oh, breezeway. I blew it again. What happens in the breezeway?
Nice to get a nice breeze outside.
That's where you get a nice breeze, a sea breeze. Anyway, but what happens? College campuses are increasingly hostile environments. So like you said, you're making an active choice to put a young person in formative years in a hostile environment. So if you're going to drop somebody in enemy territory or a hostile environment, they've got to be armed. They've got to have the tools, the weapons in order to defend themselves against the hostility that they're likely going to find.
And listen, again, I can't speak for every community. I think our community does a... Did we lose Rabbi Goldberg?
Okay, welcome to Behind the Bima.
I think we do a good job.
It is 2 hours, right?
It's much more than 2 hours. No, I think our community does a pretty good job of it.
I think I just killed that by accident. What just happened? Is this still going?
You disappeared.
Talking about your Drasha, don't worry about it.
I think I left it by accident.
No, I was saying
we're still getting used to the new system. I do notice a huge drop off in our viewership while we're having this conversation. Oh, they're coming back. They're back. They're back. Never mind. They're back.
Good job of it. I give Rabbi Uri Pilichowski, who was a former youth director here at BRS, a lot of credit. He was really, in my mind, like almost at the forefront of a lot of this with his pro-Israel activism, recognizing that if you catch them in that high school stage and involve them in APAC and give them the confidence to be activists, so you set them on a trajectory where they're not afraid to use their voice, but they know how to use their voice. They understand how the system works, and they understand how to use their voice with the system. And I give him a lot of credit for that. I mean, when he came to Boca, He had done it in LA. He'd replicated it in Boca. He's still doing it from Israel, and really created a paradigm that a lot of communities have tried to copy after that.
He does. Rabbi Uri Pilichowski getting a shout out. Pillows. Rabbi Uri Pilichowski is doing great stuff. Rabbi Broide, one of my favorite things.
People looking at universities, there are great universities for Americans right now in Israel. You know, if you say, listen, I got to go to a university, there's so many options right now. A place like IDC in Herzliya, great option. Zionistic university, all Jewish.
Rabbi Broide, you remember our college road trip together? And that's not exactly what it sounds, but it was
right.
One of my favorite things that we ever did here. Was I rabbi at the time, assistant rabbi? We had kids on college campuses, and you and I said, hey, let's go see them, Bashir Sham. Let's go see what's going on these campuses. Let's go check in on these kids and let them know we love them. So we flew to New York. We drove around the New York area, hit a bunch of those campuses. We drove to Maryland, Pennsylvania. We made our way down, and we had a great time. We had a great time meeting the students. We had a great time learning what's going on in campuses. You and I just had a great time hanging out and being together. Both of us had hair back then, I believe. Yeah. That's how long ago it was. It's time for another one of those college road trips. That college campuses will open up again one day, and we'll be able to do that.
We can borrow a van from someone, and we can go up north.
That was good stuff. What's gentlemen? What's going on in your challenge groups? How are the mind, body, soul 30-day challenges coming?
It's funny. I was going to ask you because you definitely have the most active and competitive challenge out of all the 9. In fact, people blowing past each other's records. Someone did a 6-minute plank this week.
Are we giving him a shout out? Are we giving him credit? Evan Landau, Dr. Evan Landau broke the 6-minute mark on the plank WhatsApp group. My
running chavrusa, but yeah, explain what that's like to watch people not only achieve their goals but surpass each other, and to really have this ambition to keep on pushing the envelope. It's
a beautiful thing. Actually, today's Living with Emunah Shir, I spoke about. Wasn't from me. I was quoting Reb Steinman Zatzal, who talked about the basis, the core of a Jew's life is living with emunah bitachon, that Hashem's presence and involvement in your life is very real. It's at the core. It's at the center. And he said he doesn't understand how there are observant Jews who don't collapse, who don't tip over because they have such a weak core and such a weak base. And I said that's exactly why you have to strengthen your core. There's a physical, you need to have a strong core. You know, when you plank, you strengthen your core muscles, you strengthen your back muscles, you develop a spine, you could stand up straight, and you can withstand the wind or an object or a bully. That's true physically, and it's also true spiritually. You have to have a strong core. And it was nice because after the shir this morning, several new people signed up for our plank group. They got a rude awakening because I said, just plank a minute a day. And all of a sudden they see these like animals posting like 6-minute planks, competing, ruthless, going at each other. It's really amazing. But I'll tell you, a highlight of my plank group was I only posted it. I only get to it usually late at night, and I post mine late at night. I really was roaring strong, and I've taken a little bit of a step back, which is frustrating. I have to tell you, I'm not competitive, but if someone were competitive, it's a little bit frustrating. But anyway, so one night I posted just like you don't give a 2-hour Shabbos. Listen, if you want to lie in the month of Elul coming up on Yom Kippur, you do have my phone number to ask for Mechila, right?
I do.
You know how to get in touch. Just want to make sure you know how to get in touch with me. Anyway, so late one night I post, not too late to plank. Don't let the day go by without doing your plank. It'll take a couple minutes. You'll strengthen your core. So there's someone who posts on the group, I was just plank shamed by Rabbi Goldberg getting out of bed to doing a plank. And then they posted their plank time. And that was, it's nice. The truth is 30 days. We all know the research. 30 days, you develop a new habit. Just plank every day for 30 days, or turn off your phone for davening, or do your walk around the circle, or read a book, or express the gratitude, or all put on the tefillin. Rabbi Broide is working on his tefillin group. 30 days. Do it for 30 days, and you formed a new habit. And I think statistics show like 50% of what we do, we are creatures of habit. So you might as well have the right habits, and then it's really amazing.
I just say something about the tefillin thing?
Sure. You don't have to ask permission every time you speak.
It's your end.
Guy Jonathan. Listen, look at this. You can see, the listeners won't hear it. Guy Jonathan, right? He says, hello from South Africa. I'm putting tefillin on at a game reserve. I don't know how he's on this group here. I don't know who Jonathan is, but he's somewhere.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, amazing.
Beautiful thing.
No, but I think, let's actually let's close by bringing Behind the Bima episode 21 full circle back to Nachi Gordon, which is that the power of technology and the internet is that you can reach people in amazing places. And if you challenge them, whether to do one more minute of extra learning, watch a video, or put on tefillin, or join a WhatsApp group, you could look at these things. I don't want to enter a whole controversy right now. I really don't. I'm going to get in trouble with my family. I don't want to enter a controversy. I will just say that I watched with some amazement, a little amusement, that Aguda, and Agudas Yisrael is a beautiful, I'm a member of Aguda. I'm a member. I've partnered with Aguda here in South Florida, my friend Rabbi Matz. I believe in Aguda. I've been a member of Aguda and OU and Young Israel. I believe in all these things. But I've really, I've watched that Aguda is all over every social media platform, including Facebook and Twitter and much more. They're doing a major fundraising campaign right now, charity matching campaign. Everybody should go on, give money. Aguda is doing great things. They advocate for the things we care about: Jewish education, community, religious freedoms. Support Aguda. It's doing amazing things. But it wasn't that long ago that world was looking at and calling names and dismissing anyone who had anything to do with anything social media. And the point is, they're still riddled with problems, and you shouldn't be on there if you're addictive. You're going to post the wrong things, look at the wrong things, make the wrong connections, feel FOMO, competitiveness. There are enormous dangers of that world. I'm not saying it's Glock kosher v'yosher, everybody should jump on. I'm just saying that all along we said, just like the car can drive you inappropriate places or take you to do mitzvahs, just like the telephone can be a conduit of Lashon Hara, or you could dial into the daf. The internet and technology, all of it can be a platform for the good, or it can be very dangerous. So you can't reject it wholesale. You got to have filters. You got to be careful. You got to use it in a filtered way. And I think that's a theme of tonight. Nachi's doing that by reaching people with Meaningful Minute. Rabbi Broide is reaching a guy he never met. He has no idea where he is, but that guy's now putting tefillin on every day. And there's somebody who got out of bed to plank at night. It's amazing what technology can do.
And just to bring it full circle, when we were talking about our rabbinic seminar today with Rabbi J.J. Schachter, one of the rabbis, I don't remember who, made that point. They said, for years, we've been lamenting technology. We've been getting up in the high holidays and talking about shutting down technology and being alone and spending more time alone. And now during COVID, can you imagine what COVID would have been like without technology, Rabbi Goldberg? Can you imagine what the COVID would have been like if you couldn't give your Zoom classes and connect to people through the internet and through these mechanisms? So, the pendulum has switched, where this year the high holidays aren't going to be about, oh, you got to spend more time alone. Now it's going to be like, embrace how technology can bring us together and foster a greater sense of community.
Yeah. Really amazing. Another great episode, gentlemen. Thank you for giving your time, for great conversation. Yeah. And as always, there's so much more to think about and to talk about. I want to encourage people to download the Meaningful Minute app. Maybe watch Meaningful People this week, or listen to it if you like. Definitely listen to Behind the Bima. And don't forget to rate and review and share Behind the Bima. We've still got, I know I've been putting this out there for a few weeks, but we've got a lineup of great guests that you're going to be blown away who's coming on this show in the next few weeks. Very exciting. We've got a lineup of sponsors actually for the next few weeks, but if you want to sponsor, you can email Lee at BRS Online. But please download our podcast, rate and review, share them with others who you think will be inspired. Until next time, stay happy, stay healthy, and stay holy.